I have one scary story. I wake up the next morning to like 15 missed calls from Brew, 25 from my parents. I get out of bed and there are notes underneath my door. They were all from the front desk that were like, so-and-so has called the hotel, was requesting your room number, but if this was not from someone that you know, please come down and let us know. And I forked it up in one day of staring there alone. Well, y'all, welcome back to Anna's Guide. I'm so happy that you're here, and today's podcast is such a fun episode that's all about traveling because I just finished 4 flights in 6 days. That's 3 different cities in 6 days. I pretty much went to one every other day, and I got home like 1 hour ago, and now I'm already drinking. Look at me. My emergency mocktail. Delicious. And making sure I don't get sick. And for this trip, it was partially solo travel, partially not. But we're going to talk this week all about solo travel, going places on your own, exploring your independence, and growing as a travel guru. But before we get into that, you guys know what time it is. It's rosebud thorn time. Here we go. My rosebud thorn. For my rose, my bike for my triathlon got finished being made. So I get to go pick it up tomorrow, which is really fun. It's champagne and peach. It's very cutie, very girly. And it's like an official racing road bike. So I'm going to feel like a professional at my triathlon. Easy peasy my rose for the week. My bud for the week is that my birthday's coming up. That's probably going to be my bud for the next like 2 weeks until my birthday actually gets here. I officially sent out the invites for my like little come in over to my house and have a little coffee shop birthday party. And rumor has it I have a call tomorrow morning with potentially one of my favorite coffee shops in LA, and they might be helping with bringing my birthday idea to life. So that's definitely going to make it easier on me from having to make all the coffees, but I'm really looking forward to that for tomorrow. And then my thorn for this week is probably how tired I am. As you can imagine, my travel week this week was very overwhelming. It started with Orlando, Florida, had 1 day in Orlando, flew the next morning, Orlando to Michigan, immediately attended Katie's baby shower, had 1 day in Michigan where we actually went to go see Brew's nieces. I got on another flight to Atlanta. He got on a flight back to LA. I had 2 3:30 a.m. wake-up calls this week for my flight. And that was my thorn. I think I'm still recovering, and I don't know how I'm here right now recording this, but we made it, and we are. So let's get right into this topic this week of traveling solo. I spent a lot of this week by myself, even though I was traveling for work and there was a little bit of overlap between me and Brew in Michigan. The first leg of the trip was alone, and the last leg of the trip was alone. And I think the biggest thing people talk about when they go on a trip by themselves, it's like, how do I stay entertained? What do I do to stay engaged while I'm traveling? What do I bring with me? How do I stay on top of it? And honestly, I'm a big book girly right now, so having a book is entertaining enough for me. But oftentimes when I'm traveling, sometimes I really like to rot, and I also like to get nothing done. But you also want to be able to take advantage of the cities that you're going to, right? Like, what are you going to do if you go to a new state or a new city and then you don't even get to enjoy the city that you're visiting because you're finally getting time off to actually like lay down and relax for a little bit? 2 of the 3 trips this week were work related. So I kind of had these really big pillars of like, I have to be at this dinner. I have to be at this event. I'm going to be at this moment here too. So what time do I have off in between, and how am I going to fill that time? Usually the first thing to fill it for me is my workouts, because I'm obviously trying to be a fitness girly and it's really difficult. So I usually plan a gym time or what workout I'm going to fit in while I'm there. Then I will normally plan an excursion or time by the pool or a massage, like an appointment of some kind. Do you know what I mean? Like something where it's like, this is also another time frame that I have free. And around those pillars, I can build in whatever I want to do during the week. Like maybe I just want to go and lay by the pool for the whole time and relax. Maybe I don't want to leave my hotel room because I'm like tired and like maybe my social battery is really running low. Any of those things. For me, at the Neutrogena trip, I got so lucky that there were so many creators that I like really love hanging out with. I had Abby Herbert there, and I also had Alex and John. And I feel like because I had like 2 sets of friends, it was so easy to like make friends when I was there. I've also never really had quality time with either of those individuals. I solely know them from the internet. So it's kind of also a nice little way to like work my social battery of like making new friends while I was traveling and get to have some quality time with people. And even that, like when you're traveling for work, you don't actually have too much alone time. The most time that you're alone is when you're in a hotel room. So it's really the question of, do you want to stay in your alone time, or do you want to go out and spend time with people who are coworkers or who you know are also on this trip with you? Like I said, when you're deciding where to go on a solo journey, you're usually picking between, are you traveling for fun? Are you traveling to see a friend, or are you traveling for work? And I would say 90% of my solo travels are actually for work. I very rarely solo travel for fun because I'm going to go somewhere. I think I end up traveling so much alone for work that I like having the company when I'm going somewhere on a vacation or any of that stuff. And when I'm going to see a friend, once I get to that destination, I'm really not that alone, which is always nice. But one of my favorite solo travel stories, which is related to me doing it for work, is when I went to Barcelona with Louis Vuitton. And that trip came about pretty last minute. I think we had gotten the invite maybe a few weeks before. And so I get on an airplane, I fly overseas, I end up in Barcelona, a place I've never been before, let me also add. And the reason I think that this was one of my favorite trips is because I think it was one of my most productive trips. Even though I knew the day that I landed, I had off. The next day, I had an event during the day and then a dinner. And I think the last day I might have also had an event in the afternoon and then a dinner again. Kind of this run of show was kind of 3 days, I think. Every moment was filled with something, either work related or not. I got to go see the Sacred Familia, the Sacred Family Church, the iconic church that's in Barcelona. Okay, if you've ever seen pictures of Barcelona, you've seen a picture of this church. It's like one half was built by one artist and the other half was built by a different artist, or tried to complete, and they look like two completely different churches from either side, and it was stunning. So I went to go see that because I was like, okay, this is a major thing in Barcelona that I want to see. I went shopping. Every day I went for a walk to find ice cream. Like, I had the best time, and I also feel like this trip felt really safe for me because for one of the first times I had a driver on a trip, which I've never had that before. I know it's like such a luxury, so I know it's not a universal thing that you will always be able to have on a trip. But because I was with work, they had hired someone, and this man literally was like, I am everywhere you are, even if you don't know I'm there. And that's all I needed to know. I was safe. He like told me about that. He used to work for like the FBI and stuff. It was kind of cool. Like I was like, okay, private security. So that was also a huge perk of that trip. And I think that's why I felt so open to go on such long walks and feel so adventurous in that moment, because I felt safe even though I was by myself. And I've had plenty of not feeling safe experiences. And so that one really stands out to me as one of my best solo travels, and just getting the chance to really be the curator of my own time. Often when we're traveling, you have to share your time if you're with other people. And not only share your time in terms of like self-care or what you do, but sometimes, if you're like me, you're a planner and you want to make everyone happy, and you want to make trips that everyone wants to go on, and you want it to be a new, exciting, unique experience for everyone. And because of that, you end up forgetting that it's also your vacation and you also are supposed to enjoy what you're doing. So when you're alone, I love that I'm in full control of my time. Whether I want what I want to eat for dinner, or order in room service, or go for a walk, or get ice cream, or get 2 sweet treats at dinner, no one is telling me no. And I love a little control. So we need to have like a mashup of all the times I say that on this podcast. I'm a control girly. I'm a girl who loves little control. This is a perfect example. It means that I get to have whatever I want to do with my time when I travel alone. And I do love the company because I love shared experiences. But when you're alone, how can you still get that feeling? Or at least how do I still get that feeling? I end up actually just sending everyone pictures of what I'm doing, or documenting it on cameras and phones and all the things. Like, I love having a camera on me that's not my phone when I'm traveling, because then I feel like I'm also creating art and creating new things while I'm traveling. And there's so much that I can share with other people around me, like my friends or my family. And it makes me feel a lot less alone when I'm on a trip. If you're thinking of why you would want to go on a solo trip, there's a lot of different reasons that I think it can add such a benefit to your life. Just speaking from my own experience, I really didn't know solo traveling before I started doing a career where I would travel a lot by myself. And I have seen such benefits from being able to have the chance to really disconnect from life in a different way, because I consider myself a really independent person, but being able to actually go on a trip and have to problem solve what happens in the airport if things go wrong. How do I actually want to spend my time when I get to my hotel room? Am I somebody who unpacks and puts it all in the closets, or am I somebody who doesn't? It's kind of an incredible way to learn about yourself and to get to know what you like and what you don't like. And sometimes I think when you travel with other people, you're kind of, whether you're the planner or not, you're following the lead and the energy of everyone else on the trip. Being able to really just do whatever you want to do is such a blessing that we take for granted. Like, even on a day-to-day basis, I'm like, oh, I'm home alone all day. But deep down, I know that I'm like planning for times that I get to be with the other people in my life and get to be with other humans. But when you're on a trip and there's no one around that you know and there's no one around that you owe, you kind of just get to be you. And I think that that's so nice. It definitely takes a magnifying glass to your own independence. And I think that the skills that you learn from traveling alone, I always thought that was engineering that taught me how to be a problem solver. I also think that it's like being in different scenarios and having to be like, okay, now what do I do if everything goes wrong? That's what teaches you like such good first world skills, and like being able to just know, I don't know, a different energy of yourself. And like, I think it feels really invigorating to get to be alone on travel. Like, I walk around every city that I go to and I'm like, do I move here? Do I become the person I am when I'm here? The truth is, I don't think I would be. I think I would be the same Anna that I am in LA that I am anywhere else. But for that like small, minute amount of time that I actually get to be somewhere else and become another person, it's so invigorating for when I get back home. Now, there's definitely going to be things that you don't like about traveling alone. There's things I don't like about traveling, period. Like if you're one of those people who gets up before they call your zone and crowds the little lines that lead up to getting your ticket scanned to get on the little walkway to get onto the airplane, that is my personal pet peeve. I literally traveled this weekend and I feel like this happens every time. I don't know if I just don't give energy that suits this, but I was waiting in a chair. They call zone 1 and I was traveling for work, so I was zone 1. Okay, I didn't pick that I was zone 1. I also have so many Delta perks. It's crazy because I am somebody who picks, this is all going to be in my little, like, I'm going to get to tips and tricks in a minute, but I am somebody who like picks an airline and sticks with that airline because I want to have as many perks as possible. I'm waiting. They call my zone. I get up. I start walking toward the area of people that are all crowding the entrance to the zone. I'm like, excuse me, sorry, I'm just gonna squeeze right, sorry, one way. Okay, me getting to the front of the line, okay? One singular man is standing in front of the gate, like practically has like a man spread arms on hips, like blocking the entryway, patiently waiting for his turn. And I was like, hi, sorry, I'm just gonna hop in line real quick right there. I sound like I'm from the Midwest and I do that every time. And he's like, oh, they're only doing zone 1. And I had to be like, yeah, that's me. I'm like flashed to my ticket. I was like, sorry, it is my time. They have summoned me. And he was like, oh, okay. Cancel those people, 2025. I just wish that they would know that we're all going to get on the airplane. I think if anything, I'm only stressed for like actually the last zones on the airplane because the overhead compartment bin space. Those are the only people that I'm stressed for. And if everyone would turn their luggage, like books, on a bookshelf, then everyone's luggage would fit. Or we have to start designing planes to fit everyone's luggage, which sounds like a problem that's not in our hands. So we don't need to be crowding the gate. That's my thing. I asked Brew what his pet peeve was, and he said people who talk too loud on airplanes. And then I started to think if I'm one of those people. I am the person who talks to my strangers. I love a stranger. I know you're not supposed to do that, but I do. I say hi to everyone on airplanes. I'm sitting next to them. I'm asking them their favorite color. I ask them what they want to be when they grow up. And you want to know what? Gosh darn it, I meet the coolest people on airplanes. Maybe I'm not very good at solo travel because I get really lonely when I'm all by myself. I just want to have a friend. And I think it's so fun. I would love, okay, Anna's pitching her content ideas now. I would love to make a series where I interview the people next to me on a flight for the whole flight. Would they hate it? I think they would. I fear it wouldn't last long. But the best time to speak to the person next to you on a flight is 30 minutes before you're landing. Because then you only have to deal with them 30 minutes if it doesn't go well. And you're not like awkwardly stuck sitting next to each other for very much longer if it also doesn't go well. You know what I mean? Like if you sit down, you open a conversation, you got 4 more hours next to this person. Does the conversation continue? Does it get cut off? I could do a whole PowerPoint presentation on my opinions on talking on airplanes. Anyway, but instead, I'm going to give you different advice. Advice about travel. Because I consider myself a bit of a travel connoisseur. I'm so close to 1,000,000 miles. I cannot wait. That's going to be such a trademark for me. Number 1, beating jet lag. Now, LA to Florida, not bad jet lag. LA to Michigan, it's fine. I'm up late at night. I want to sleep until 11 o'clock in the morning. You just force yourself not to one day and suddenly it all works out in your favor. Okay? The hard ones are when you're going to international travel. Like LA to Paris is a 9-hour time change. Or when we went to Korea, I think it was 15 hours that they were ahead of us. So like we would live practically a whole day before the next people would even wake up in LA. You know, like it was actually a crazy time zone. Something like that's actually easier because you legitimately are the opposite side of the clock. So you just force yourself to go to sleep at night and wake up in the morning and you live your life. The one that's so hard is doing something like the 6 hours or the 9 hours, which is like East Coast to Paris or East Coast to Europe and West Coast to Europe. And the reason I think that is because I will stay awake until 2, 3, and 4 in the morning when I'm overseas and like just keep working because everyone in the States is behind me. So when I wake up in the morning, I have no one to talk to. And then as soon as nighttime hits for me, it's like their peak work day. And that's usually where I have the worst time trying to figure out when to sleep. But here's how you beat jet lag. And I figured it out. When you are traveling, don't look at your time zone to know what to set and sleep to. Look at the time zone you're going to. And also, always pick the night flight. I always pick the 10 p.m. flight from LA overseas. You usually land at like, you can land anywhere from 10 a.m. to like 2 p.m. depending on if you have layovers or anything or how far you're going. And honestly, I get on that airplane and I fall asleep immediately. And I just sleep the whole flight. I also am very good at sleeping anywhere. I'm a tired girl. I will fall asleep anywhere. And so for me, that flight, if I can just fall asleep at the beginning of it, I land in Paris, I'm immediately on the time zone. The reason I keep saying Paris is because that's my most gone to location, I would say. Just based off like fashion weeks or interest, I love going there. So for me, that's why I'm using that as an example because I think that's my most experienced one. But normally I can beat the jet lag just by picking a night flight and by watching what the time zone is doing on their time zone that I'm going to, not the one that I'm coming from. Yeah. Now, surviving flight delays and cancellations. This is the tip I was just telling you about. I am a Delta girl through and through. Tried and true. Can't help it. I've had it since I was a little kid. Like literally my dad told us we were a Delta family. We are now a Delta family. And so because of that, you get a lot of perks. And I have like the credit card and like the miles and all that stuff. So I have like a special phone number because I have diamond medallion that I can call if I have any issues. And I know that sounds so bougie. It's honestly the best thing I've had because it comes in handy for somebody who travels often. Every time it comes in handy. And also I am the friend that will give my friends my phone number and be like, just call this line, or I will call on their behalf because if one of you has it, all of you are winning. I mean, it used to be like my dad who had it. So I used to just have to like call my parents and be like, hey, can you help me? I'm like stuck here and I can't get to this. That's hint number 1. Because if you have to wait for a help desk once you get to the airport, like I actually think on my Barcelona flight, the flight got canceled while we were on the plane. So they made us all deplane and no one had a way to get back to the States. Like nothing was going directly back to LA anymore for like the next 2 days or something crazy. Like I remember it was like we were legitimately like, what do I do now? So I had to find a different flight with a different layover. I still wanted to stay on that airline. Whatever it may be. I was trying to figure out how to get from point A to point B. And everyone had to get off the plane and line up at the desk that's right outside the aircraft versus I called the Delta airline from the plane and got it figured out. So if you can find an airline that has good perks that you like and strive towards having like a status with them, that's so helpful. My next thing is that, at least I've always had this advantage with Delta, if something goes wrong and let's say a flight gets canceled, I will just go and book another flight, and I will call them and be like, hey, this flight I can't get on because you canceled it, but I just want to make sure I didn't lose a seat on the next flight that I want to book. Will you refund me for this one or use that as credit toward my next flight? And they will, which is kind of nice. I feel like I've had a lot of like luck with that, where even a few weeks ago I got stuck in New York and my flight kept getting delayed, and I didn't want to be somebody who got stuck sitting there for 6 hours. So I looked for whenever the next leaving New York flight was, and I didn't want to be the last person to get seats because I had to wait for my other ticket to transfer over. So I just booked it and then got refunded for my first one and then got to fly the other one. The more you know. This is me just, honestly, this is my PowerPoint presentation. Now, something I think that is so common right now is travel anxiety. In so many senses of it. Even before, I feel like some people always say like the number one reason they don't want to go somewhere is because they're anxious about flying. Now, I'm sure you've heard what everybody says about the Jell-O analogy, and that pressure on the plane comes from all four directions and there's nothing to worry about and there's so many flights a day. I don't think it really ever helps, if anything. But I will say, I think some way that I beat any travel anxiety, which I struggle with. Okay, let's break down this wall. I struggle with food anxiety. So I get anxious about the food that I eat on the plane, and I get anxious about the food that I eat before I get on the plane, and that I will be sick on the plane. That's my fear. I'm a big no to illness girl, okay? I'm afraid, because it's happened before, that I will get a stomach bug on the airplane, or like suddenly just get so motion sick that I start throwing up. I had let me tell you a good story. It's a great story. It's not good. I actually might have told before. I drank too many cappuccinos in Paris one year, got on my flight, was so jet lagged because I was doing no sleep until 4 o'clock in the morning, would go to sleep and wake up at 7 every day, and then just drink 4 cappuccinos a day to stay awake. Not recommended. I get on my flight home and I'm like, thank goodness I finally get to sleep. I lay down. I actually sleep the full 10-hour flight. Whole thing. I did not wake up at all. But as soon as I wake up, I'm like, oh my gosh, my caffeine withdrawal headache, that migraine was unlike anything I've ever experienced before. I tried to order a Diet Coke to like lightly have caffeine. Diet Coke made me sick. Threw up the whole landing of the flight. Like the 30 minutes of the landing, locked in the bathroom. And I feel like that also wrecked me, and also now makes me a bit coffee anxious. But from that, my travel anxiety tip for all this thing is find a really good routine before you travel. I'm someone who normally will pick a morning flight. I would prefer waking up early because I know that I can sleep on a plane. So I will pick a morning flight. I always eat oatmeal before my flight. I don't drink coffee. Sometimes I'll have a hot cocoa or I'll have a mint tea. Those are the only options. I will sleep for the takeoff of the flight. Usually I can read my book and I will fall asleep reading my book. I actually did that today and I dropped it and it made the loudest sound and it like jolted me awake and the 6 people next to me, and I was like, I'm so sorry. But I will fall asleep reading, and then I wake up and we're in the air, and I can choose if I want to keep reading or if I want to get a snack or if I want to have a little bit of food, whatever it may be. I also think packing snacks on the flight helps because sometimes when I'm like a little bit anxious, I just kind of like need something to calm me down. I love a bottle of cold water and I love a Cheez-It. That's my routine. Also, the under eye masks are my favorite thing. I think that feels like such good self-care. I'll usually like put a couple of those on. Honestly, like those are my recommendations. I feel like that's all you really need is like as long as you have a really strong set routine, it kind of alleviates a little bit of that anxiety because you're like, listen, I've done this before and I've done it this way and I felt good last time. I'm going to feel good this time. And I think that consistency is what helps you adapt to being better at traveling. My next tip is to stay safe when you're traveling, especially when you're traveling alone. What's kind of crazy is that you don't really know, especially in new countries, what to expect, who's going to be around. I don't know. Even when I'm leaving the airport, I get anxious what car I'm getting into or who I'm going to be around. And I have a recommendation for that on its own. But you always have to make sure that you're really aware. I know a lot of people always are like, oh my gosh, don't listen to headphones when you're walking. I wear like the little over my ear headphones that do like they're wrapping around, but my ears aren't plugged with a headphone. That was a really horrible way to explain that. That's the headphones that I wear because I like to have music playing, but that way I'm still very aware of who's around me and I just keep it quiet enough that I can hear stuff. I have one scary story. I went to Paris for my very first fashion week and I stayed at this beautiful hotel. I had picked it because I knew that it had really good security, and I was in my room the very first day that I got there. This is also a learning lesson, and I'm going to tell you guys another thing you should keep in mind is that I was filming my little TikTok in my room talking about going out to go find a good cup of coffee. But I had not realized that in the background of my video, I had the emergency exit sign behind my head that also had my room circled so that way I would know where I was in the hotel in case of an emergency. Now, I filmed the video, edited it, posted it that night, went to bed. I wake up the next morning to like 15 missed calls from Brew, 25 from my parents. Every one of my friends had texted me. And then I was like, what is going on? It was like 7:00 in the morning, and I was like, oh my gosh, what's happening? I get out of bed, and there are notes underneath my door, and I was like, I don't like this. First off, this is scary. But when I picked up the notes, they were all from the front desk that were like, hello, we just want to inform you that so-and-so has called the hotel and was requesting your room number, but if this was not from you or someone that you know, please come down and let us know. And I had not known that my room number had been shared on my behalf. I just didn't even think. I wasn't even thinking about the fact that the emergency thing would have me circle on the back. And honestly, I didn't even read it. I mean, I was so aloof to that idea, which was super unsafe of me. My parents were actually on their way to Paris and were meeting me that next day. So I was only spending one day alone in that hotel, and I forked it up in one day of staying there alone. But I ended up having to go down to the hotel and tell them what was happening, and kind of an awkward hi, I'm sorry, I make videos on social media and I made a vlog and unfortunately didn't realize that my room was on it. Can I switch rooms? And they were really kind and so compassionate to me. They were like, oh my gosh, no, we just want to make sure that you're safe. And luckily, as a girl staying alone, the hotel that I had stayed in had double security. So you had to scan to get into the front door, scan to get past the front desk, and then scan again to get the elevators. So there were so many layers to get into the actual rooms, which is incredible because I think it was also a restaurant in the downstairs of the hotel. So a lot of normal people could walk into the hotel room, or into the hotel itself, but not get to the rooms. And so that was huge. But once again, this is the learning lesson. Do not post where you are as you're there, no matter who you are. Because imagine, I'm somebody with an online presence that has a lot of people watching, including my parents is what I mean by a lot of people, my parents, my friends, other creators watching where I am and what I'm doing and if I'm safe. If you could just be anybody, and it could be someone scary that has really horrible intentions and just follows you because of scary things, and they see wrong place, wrong time, and that you weren't watching your back about it. And that's just my forewarning for all my girlies and my boys, whatever it is, just be really cautious. And now as a creator, I've learned maybe we wait a day or two, or maybe we don't share exactly what hotel we're staying in, or maybe we're just cautious of the little things in the hotel that might give away where exactly you are, what it looks like outside the window of your hotel that could actually show a landmark that would tell people how close you are to those landmarks. Thinking about those things, huge lifesaver. And I think that's also a big thing is sleeping alone. I actually feel very safe sleeping alone in hotel rooms for some reason. Yeah, I think living alone in a house is a little bit scarier. Now I get a little more scared staying alone or when Brew's out of town, but in hotels and in apartments, for some reason, I feel a bit safer. So that's just my thought. But also always keep in mind your surroundings, what you're posting, how much information you're sharing, and whether or not you're sharing it when you're there. When I'm picking a hotel, my big things are online reviews. I care a lot about what the photos look like. I usually want a cute little aesthetic hotel because I make videos and I want to take pretty pictures. And I also look a lot at where you can walk to from that hotel. And so that is a huge perk for me, at least, is if I know I'm going to be alone, I don't want to get in random cars. I want to do a lot on foot if I can. And so picking areas that I know I can walk to is the dream. Saving money when traveling alone, also really important. And I think what helps with that is, one, if you're traveling to go see friends, you negate the hotel cost, because when you're traveling with someone, you have the chance to split that hotel room. If you're traveling alone, all responsibility is on you. Also, once again, the perks of having a status, like an airline status. This isn't even sponsored. I'm literally just telling you this. I cannot tell you how many flights I've gotten just off mileage, because I fly so much for work that then those work miles add up, and then I can buy myself flights just on miles for fun. That's a huge one too, is I think like saving money there, and also picking destinations. You can do a solo trip to more local destinations. Like, you don't have to be going out of the country to be able to enjoy a fun adventure. And so even picking stuff that's more local or areas that you've never been to before. Like, I actually think maybe my next solo trip, I have a handful of ones that I want to go to. First off, would love to go somewhere that's like beaches or like Bahamas or tropical oasis-y or like Hawaii, obviously. Because I also think like for a solo trip, I would want to be able to like self-care on it. I don't really want to have to go on a bunch of excursions. I kind of want to get to my hotel and not leave. But I also really want to go to Seattle for some reason. I've never been to Seattle. I don't even know what it looks like. I don't think I've ever been anywhere north of San Francisco. Actually, now that I'm thinking about it, on this West Coast. I'm on the West Coast. And on the East Coast, I've never been north of New York. So, like, I'd love to go to Maine and Vermont and, like, all of that. So, you can do more local vibes and still get a really cool trip out of it. My best self-care wellness hacks are obviously the eye masks. Duh. Divine. I'm obsessed with doing those on flights. And for planning the best itinerary, it's kind of what I mentioned earlier. It's similar to what I do for my productivity. I have my pillars of like, I have to go to this meeting, I have to go to this event, I have to go to this. What are like my big block schedules? I fit in the fun block schedules around that, and then everything else is just gravy. If I want to go to a coffee shop, if I want to go on a walk, if I want to fit in a workout, whatever it may be, that's how I do it to it. I think another tip / something that stresses me out when I'm traveling, or something that I think about often, is how to get from the airport to the hotel. Because when you land somewhere, you are in an entirely new city. Sometimes Uber doesn't work because some airports are weird about Uber and pickups and where you go. Even LA, I think, has like, unless you get a Uber Black or Black XL or Black SUV, you can't get picked up at the airport. You have to get on a shuttle to go to the Uber pickup location. And at that point, fun fact, the taxis are actually usually cheaper than the Uber. So then you just get in a taxi. But no one can guarantee that ride is going to be enjoyable. You know what I mean? Sometimes it's hit or miss. Like, sometimes you get a great taxi and sometimes you do not get a great taxi. But I feel like Ubers are like that too anyway. But my biggest stress is from airport to hotel, because I don't usually know what's outside of the airport once I get there. And this is a very bougie way to do this. But if I'm international, this is my favorite way to do this. I will hire a driver. I like use this app called Black Lane, and it's like $100, and someone will wait at the airport for you with your name on a sign. If you ever wonder how people got those, if you're like, oh, I wonder like what they do and have, you literally can just get it yourself. Like, you can literally put your own name on the sign and they'll like wait for you, and like you feel really important. But like, usually I get them when I'm working, because then you can guarantee there's someone waiting for you at the airport. But if I'm alone and I just want to make sure that I get into the right car, the good thing about the app is that it sends you the driver's name and their driver's license number and their like car license plate number, and like the guy usually gets there, you like input what ticket you're on, and they will usually get there 15 minutes before you land. So they'll be waiting for you, and they have a sign, you find them, they help you get your stuff. It's like a full service. But for me, traveling alone, that brings me a lot of peace, because I just get afraid that I would get into a car and someone would steal me, and then I'd be stuck in the car and I wouldn't be able to escape. That is my actually like biggest stress, and so that's why I hire a like little road car service just for the one trip. And I know that's gonna be more expensive than Uber, and I know that's a luxury to have, but I am just letting you know, if you're going alone, that is a splurge that's worth it. My final tip, if you are an extrovert and somebody who doesn't really like to be lonely, some people who are introverts might love the quiet of traveling alone and going on a solo trip. For me, I do get a little bit lonely, and so I like to have a few things that I do. 1, reading my book keeps me from being lonely. 2, Animal Crossing keeps me from being lonely. 3, I love sending photos of what I'm doing. And that just kind of helps me feel like my family or my friends are on the trip with me. Like, look at this update, or look what I did today, or here's a little peek at my behind the scenes. Like, all of that stuff makes me feel like I'm still very connected to the people that I love and still not 100% alone. And I also think it's a big safety thing for everyone to know where I am and what I'm doing and that I'm okay. So I highly recommend that if you're starting to like feel a little bit lonely on your solo trips, is go ahead and make a little group chat of all your people and send your photos and videos and updates in your group chat. And sometimes for me, it literally is like making my TikToks is my anti-loneliness. And that was when I first moved to LA. And now it's every time I go on a trip, I feel like that's the way that I combat my loneliness. And now we are on to one of my favorite parts of the episode, and it is Anna Answers. And today the question we're asking all of my listeners, which if you ever have a response to this, you can call me at 323-433-0683 over on my IG at Anna Exetar. You can always check out when I post on the days that we record, which PS is usually on a Thursday, the same day my episodes come out. You guys can go and check out what our questions are. And this week we asked, what's something that's stopping you from traveling solo? Because I want to give advice and I want to hear what makes you nervous or what stresses you out about your travel. And I can't wait to hear your guys' thoughts and to give some advice if I can.
Hi, Anna. This is Annika, also a Michigan girly.
Woo, Michigan girly.
I think what really keeps me from solo traveling, not that I don't have so many places that I would like to visit, but I really think what keeps me from solo traveling is the amount of true crime stuff I listen to.
So fair.
So I think I really just got it in my head that if I go somewhere alone, something is going to happen to me. I know that's not really a positive way to think about it, but also I think I would rather travel with a buddy than travel by myself, just to have that experience with somebody else. I can't wait to hear about all of your travels, and I hope you have a great rest of your day. Bye.
Bye, Annika. Thanks for calling. Okay, listen, I get it. My mother watches the true crime stuff, so I think that she's always more stressed about me traveling than I am stressed about traveling. But I will say, I don't want to say not to worry about that, because I think you should worry, and your awareness is what matters. But I don't think it should hold you back from going on a trip every once in a while. But I do agree that traveling with a buddy and having that friend and having someone that you can like rely on and lean on, I'm the same way. Like I think because I travel so much alone for work, it feels easier. But if I could choose to travel, I would probably still always pick to go with Brew, because I like having a friend. I like having a buddy. I like having someone to share those experiences with. But I get it. The true crime stuff does me, and that's why I can't really watch it that much. I don't really like scary or sad shows. No, I love sad shows. I don't like scary ones. Thanks for calling, Annika. Let's hear another one.
Okay, one of the reasons I'm scared to travel solo alone, well, like, I'm kind of scared, but I feel like I would be perfectly fine on my own, is the money in the state of the world, because it's a little expensive. And I just think if it was a little cheaper, or if I knew how to budget better, I would totally go. Also, I saw that you posted this after you got done traveling, and it's so fun because the new city you're exploring is my city. So I hope you have so much fun and enjoy. Okay, bye.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much. She didn't leave her name, but thank you so much for calling. And I love that. I'm gonna either guess that was Atlanta, because I just came from Atlanta, and honestly that city was so cool. Do you know the girlies in Atlanta were my favorite part? I have never had more words of affirmation. I got called sweetie, honey, darling every time I spoke to anybody, and it filled my cup. I wish people talked like that in LA, because they do not. So it was incredible, and I had the best time in that city. But I agree. I think the budget side of traveling is kind of what gets difficult. And I feel like that's why a lot of times my solo travels get looped in with when I go somewhere for work. And I'm just trying to make the most out of an experience that I'm already getting to have because of a job or because of a responsibility. And so that's why I try to do more of that like block scheduling, grouping things together. And oftentimes I think the things that I enjoy going to when I'm traveling don't really cost money once I'm there. Like, for example, in Barcelona, I did not go into the church and I did not pay for a ticket to go into the church, but I did go see it. And like maybe it was a shortened experience because I didn't walk inside, but I still felt such an incredible amount of admiration for what I was getting to witness somewhere new without actually having to like spend a lot of money to be there. And similarly, even like when I go somewhere, the first thing I'm looking for is like coffee shops, which kind of keeps the cost low, or similar to what I would be paying if I was at home too. But like I said, not every solo trip has to be a huge getaway where it's like I'm going to Dubai by myself for 15 days. You know, like it can be fun little weekend getaways that do help minimize cost. And something that I feel like I've been exploring and kind of just came from the project we were working on is like that impact on your mental health and your wellness, and how like even taking little short trips a few times a year can make you feel so much refreshed when you get so much more refreshed when you get back home, that you are more driven to like work harder and do better work when you're back. And so that's kind of the hope and the trade-off that I would hope we would find through travel. But I love that. I hope you get to go on a solo trip soon. And that is a wrap on today's episode, you guys. Thank you so much for listening. I'm so happy that you're here. Don't forget to rate, follow, and review Anna's Guide wherever you get your podcast. And you can also subscribe to Anna's Guide on YouTube for your full video episodes. Don't forget to follow me on TikTok at Anna Exetar, and the podcast page at The Anna Guide on Instagram and TikTok, where you can see your weekly video goodness. I'm so happy you're here, and I can't wait to see you next week. Love you guys. Bye.